Good morning, everyone. We'd like to do a special welcome to the global participants of live stream video, to the Earthkeeper Stargate Gathering, and to all the wonderful 358 physical attendees. And this is day 3. This is our final day of the Scottsdale portion of the Stargate Gathering. And we have a wonderful day in store. We will have our Stargate ceremony this afternoon before the channel with Shanara and Max in the room with us, as well as have a meditation from the gongs and the chimes and crystal bowls that you just experienced with Journey. And so we have a wonderful morning with Dr. Joseph McNamara, with Dr. Sherry St. Arnaud and Dr. Doris Christopher, to be followed by Zuni Elder Clifford Mahudi. The afternoon is very rich with the incredible John Van Auken of the Association of Research and Enlightenment, and Dr. Robert Schock. And so at this time, I'd like to ask for a round of applause for Dr. Joseph McNamara, MD. Joseph is a medical doctor that has a practice in Virginia. He is a born native of Ireland and has that wonderful disposition. He is a man of great gentleness, great kindness, and it is appropriate that he has chosen to be a medical doctor because just being in his presence is very healing. He is one of the dearest members of the Earthkeeper family, greatly beloved, and I know I'm embarrassing him now because he is such a humble person, but he is a wonderful soul, a true light. Dr. Joseph McNamara.
Thank you, Tim, very, very much. Appreciate it. And thank you very much. It's a privilege to address you, Masters, and I address you as Masters. It's a privilege to be on the roster as well of such immense speakers, people who are heroes and heroines of mine for many years. The title of my talk is This Purposeful Illusion. That seems a very odd topic for a physician. So I need to explain somewhat what this involves. Obviously, I'm in the healing community, but I think as we progress further through the coming years, we will see that our understanding of the reality in which we live in must change. Again, just to talk briefly about myself, I was born and raised in Ireland in the Roman Catholic tradition. As a boy, I was steeped in Christian mysticism. I was an altar boy, a choir boy. I learned Latin. I sang many of the Gregorian chants. I served in the Carmelite community, both monastery and nunnery, so I was literally steeped in that tradition. I developed an aptitude in high school for mathematics and science and chose to become a physician. So that made a big impression, obviously, on my development. Another big impression was made during the 60s and 70s on me with another huge influence from music, popular music. There was a lot of downloading then to us, a lot of unintentional or maybe intentional coding. The Beatles were a very, very important part of that. And both John and George traveled to India. This stimulated my interest in studying Eastern mysticism. And here there was a great challenge, as I'll explain, the concept of illusion. We are here in year 2 of the Aquarian Age, the new golden age, which we have manifested once more. I studied the Vedas, the Vedanta, the Mahabharata, the Bhagavad Gita, and both Lord Krishna and Lord Buddha say that our world is illusion. This was very challenging for me, with my basis in Western science and also Christian mysticism. There was no concept of the world as being illusion. The 90s, however, saw major leap forwards in our understanding. For example, with the Hubble telescope, we were able to peer into the very, very limits of our existence here. And a similar thing happened. As we peered into the microscopic world, we became aware of quantum mechanics, where the further you looked into matter, in the tiniest fields, matter seemed to dissolve into just simple clouds of probability. As my colleague last night explained, matter, in fact, consists mainly of vacuum, empty space, no matter at all. In the same way, as we gaze towards the limits of our current universe, our one verse, our iteration, we see that same fuzziness, that same lack of definition appearing. Now we have an understanding. It may not be accepted by the majority, but it is that the universe is a hologram. It is a matrix. And that hologram is explained most perfectly by a toroid. A toroid is, certainly in cross-section, it would remind you of a donut, except in this instance, the donut is not a hole. It does meet at the center. That's what is called the 0 point, or the null point. The donut is not just stationary, it is rotational. So it creates lines of flux coming from the 0 point. Now let me take you back to about the 1850s. This is when science went through an absolute amazing revolution, an amazing expansion of understanding. The greatest one of all, in my estimations, is the great Scottish scientist James Clerk Maxwell. He produced 20 equations defining electromagnetism. Only four of them are used in our modern science. The other 16 have been rigorously ignored. And why? It's because the other 16 depend on a substance called ether. And those of you who did your high school physics will remember the Michelson-Morley experiment, the conclusion of which says that ether in a closed system does not exist. And that is true, because in a closed system, ether is unnecessary. However, closed systems are inefficient, they are wasteful, and they go to and obey the law of entropy. It goes to no energy in the easiest possible way. However, the ether does exist, because our universe is not a closed system. It is, for all intents and purposes, an infinite system. So ether does exist. Nonetheless, our understanding of ether went through a great fallow period. And the next great man who stepped forward was Nikola Tesla. Now, Tesla was not a scientist. He was an inventor. He intuitively knew that certain things had to be. He knew there were devices that could be formulated which would draw upon an energy from the void. His greatest achievement, in my estimation, was his success in transmitting electricity wirelessly. However, this development, this discovery, sealed his fate. He was ignored, he was vilified, he was made unemployed, and so lived a life of poverty and died maybe even of starvation. There are some who believe he was murdered because his work was impounded by secret agents, and we were never, ever allowed to see those papers, those developments, which he had striven so very, very hard to bring into manifestation. However, we do have some of his earlier writings. And there are many enigmatic statements that he made. One that struck me with greatest significance was that he said there were only three things. There was spin, frequency, and resonance. Now, we all know about frequency, and we know about resonance. But you don't hear much about spin. Everything spins. The electron spins. The Earth spins. The sun spins. All of the planets spin. Our solar system spins. Our galaxy spins. And there are those who believe there's a central sun on which our galaxy spins around that central sun. So this is a very underappreciated and I believe suppressed understanding. In truth, my education stressed that mathematics and geometry were useful languages for explaining science. I now understand that, in fact, that is incorrect, that it is the opposite, in fact. That mathematics and geometry are the primal sciences, and physics, and chemistry, and biology are all iterations of that. Numbers, in and of themselves, are powerful. Those of you who study numerology know that already, but I want to reassure you that that is not just a psychic impression, that is real. So we have numbers and angles. And of course, the word angles can be rearranged to spell angels, and that's no accident. So the structure of the vacuum is what creates geometry. Our very favorite sacred geometry comes out of the void. It comes out of the vacuum. And here's the amazing thing. And this was proven by Max Planck, a very famous German scientist, that the density of the vacuum is 10 to the power of 93 grams cubed. That is how much energy that exists in each cubic centimeter of space, not only on this earth, but all throughout the universe. We are living in a sea of almost infinite energy. When I say almost, it's because 10 to the power of 93, it's 10 with 93 zeros after it. It's not quite infinity, but it's as good as you get. The number 93 in and of itself, I will go through the numbers and explain to you the powers that exist within this. Also, there's a thing called a scaling law. If you denote the power of the electron, or evaluate or iterate the power of the electron, and then iterate the power of the largest structure in our universe, in our galaxy, and put it to scale using a logarithmic scale, putting the electron at the very bottom and putting things like quasars and pulsars at the very, very end. We humans, with our torus, are at the very center of that line. So as we look into the microscopic world and look out to the great universe, we are the boundary condition. We are the center of that universe, each one of us. And it all obeys the same law. It is the unified theory. There is no conflict between quantum theory and relativity. As we explore Tesla's work, we have to appreciate we are left with 10 numbers, and that's not by accident. That's not just something that works for us. It is actually built into the universe itself, and that's why we use 10 numbers. let us set aside 0 just for one moment. There are 9 numbers left, 1 through 9. They work in families. They work in what are called binary triplets. Tesla made another enigmatic statement. He said, if you understand the numbers 3, 6, and 9, you will understand everything. So let's take 3, 6, 9. Between them, there's 3. You take the other 2 triplets, 1, 4, 7, 2, 5, 8. They're triplets also, and reflect the number 3 between each one. Max Planck, let me go back to the binary triplets again. I need to explain that a little more. The number 9 is the number of completion. It is unipolar. It is resident in the vacuum. It corresponds as a monopole to gravity in our experience. Here in 3 dimensions, gravity is a weak force. In the vacuum, gravity is a strong force. The 3 and the 6 are bipolar, and they create our magnetic field. We're left with the other 2 binary triplets, 1, 4, 7, 2, 5, 8. Those are counter currents. When one is positive, the other is negative, and creates our electric field. The interaction of the magnetic and the electric fields produce current or electricity. And Edgar Cayce has told us that the greatest or the nearest experience we have of creator in 3D is electricity. Going back to Max Planck again, the reason we are, if you like, trapped in this hologram, although we're not really trapped, but we are, it is very, very real to us, and it's meant to be that way. It is meant to be, it is meant to teach us lessons, as we learned yesterday. The highest vibration in our 3D existence is 10 to the power of 44 hertz. That means that matter, the electron, vibrates in and out of the void, in and out of the vacuum at a rate of 10 to the power of 44, and that's 10 with 44 zeros after it, per second. So it's no wonder our 3D experience seems so real, because it's meant to be. And again, if you reduce 10 and 44, it was only when I was writing this that I realized, oh yeah, take the 0 out and you're left with 144. Of course. So all information, and this is a concept that's been difficult for people working with black hole theory. Information is not lost as it's sucked into the void. It is stored on a membrane, or what's now called a brane, B-R-A-N-E. That's not a misspelling. The event horizon. It is sent through the vortex, or 0 point, and out once again. So nothing is lost. I mentioned earlier, we are the boundary condition. That is our power as creator gods. We are the boundary between the extremely small and the extremely large. From the ether, 3D is projected, as are we. Knowing this, we are now masters of our fate when we take our control back. All sentient beings are connected in the torus. All depend on each other. We are entangled with the two-dimensional world, and don't ignore the two-dimensional world. It's very, very important. It's where we get our angles from. It's where we get our sacred geometry from. But we are entangled with mammals, with insects, with trees, with the plants, with the Devics. Since we were there at the very beginning, Edgar Cayce rephrased it from the book of Job, when the morning stars sang together. Yes, we were there. Each one of us were there. We are powerful creator beings. We came here to experience the great game of duality, where the very angels themselves feared to tread. But we had no fear. We knew we could do it. Christhood involves retrieving and recognizing all as being from our co-creating. So yes, there is prime creator, but we are co-creators and have always been co-creators with prime creator. Knowing this, we have a responsibility. There's no more blame. There's no more victim. I know you have been victimized. There's no more perpetrator either. When we look at our 3D experience, there are things which absolutely strike us and prove to us, if we ever needed proof, that there is a hyperdimensional existence and that our true essence comes from higher dimensions and projects down through each one. If there is anything truly sacred about us, and there is, everything about us is sacred, everything about creation is sacred. But if there's something that is truly astonishing about us, it is written in our DNA. The structures are crystalline. They are read by photons. The instructions are carried out in a photonic way. Illusions have been made already about non-locality and projection of even the photonic energy of DNA into different substances. And this is all very true. Other constructs. There are two numbers that keep recurring again and again. The first one is pi. And there's some odd, quirky features about this, and which shows that our Creator has a playful attitude as he does his job. I like William Blake's demonstration of the Ancient of Days with his thumb and index finger as a type of calipers as he creates the lower dimensions. So 1 over pi is the same thing as pi over 10. That's very odd. Another very important number is phi, or the golden mean. 1 plus phi is the same as phi squared. There are squaring laws, there are cubed laws. Again, these are the mathematical language that the Creator spoke as he created these dimensions. We have Master Pythagoras. He was the first to, well, certainly the first in our modern era, or, well, he was classical, but he was the first in our knowledge of history that defined pi. And he described it as 22 divided by 7. And he wanted to show that there was a pattern even in this. As we delineate the octaves, we have do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, and again, if we iterate that for 4 times, we're left with 4 octaves divided by 7, the 7 notes. This is iterated again and again and again and again throughout creation. Even pulsar rates relate to each other in phi. The only prop I brought with me is this. I'm sorry, I wasn't able to transcribe it to a PowerPoint. But this is a prototypical leaf. And here we have, in the very middle here, a one-dimensional structure. And as this divides, it divides according to a phi ratio. And the lengths of these branches are also delineated through phi. And they form angles. and the angle subtended between a branch to the main stem is 72 degrees. Again, a very, very special number. 7 plus 2 equals 9. The obtuse angle is 108 degrees. Again, 1 and 8 are 9. The whole leaf subtends an angle of 36 degrees. Again, 3 and 6 are 9. And of course, the whole circle is 360 degrees. Again, 9. Our DNA is made up of 4 bases: cytidine, thymidine, guanine, and adenine. These are crystallized light composed of 8 and 64 subunits. An octahedron plus the flower of life. Nassim Haramein, who's a wonderful, wonderful theorist and physicist, has shown us that 64 is the universal number of symmetry. The periodic table of the elements shows the last element is curium, which has 96 electrons in 7 periods, or some people call them shells. And if you add 7 plus the nucleus, you end up with 8. The music of the spheres is an endlessly repeating series of intervals, and the precise mathematics of the octave, the solfeggio, involves 3, 6, 9, and their subratios. Now, I do apologize, these numbers are not correct, but I will correct them as I go along. 174 hertz is the first one. If you look at each one in turn, you will see the 1 goes to the 2, goes to the 3, goes to the 4, goes to the 5, 6 and 7, 8, etc., and continues on. The second number, 7, goes to 8. Now, I did make a mistake, and that should be 396, not 369. I got stuck on that one. And 9 reverts back again to 1, 2, and that should read 639, excuse me, and then 4, 5, 6 again. And we go back to the 174, the 4 goes to 5, goes to 6, goes to 7, goes to 8. So this is an endlessly repeating pattern of binary triplets. The music of the spheres, what Pythagoras had to say to us. Chess, one of my favorite games, has 64 squares. That has come down to us from antiquity. The tarot has 22 major arcana. 12 squared is 144. It's the 12th number of the Fibonacci sequence. How about that? And each division of the Fibonacci, maybe not the first few numbers, but the further you go out into the sequence, each division reveals phi. Can this theory be tested? Yes, it can. And there are many theoretical physicists who are proving that this is the case. Metatron had a very interesting reading last year and told us that, in fact, it is our senses that create our reality. There is no out there. Reality is an experience within our consciousness, which is modulated by the brain. So, in fact, all of our experience is inside us. Our very center, our heart, is a torus. It produces a field, the ovid, that we learned earlier. These are not just static fields. They are moving. They have lines of flux. They project both into the heart center and project out and circulate once again. Tib mentioned that it's an electrocrystal circulation, and it is a circulation. It has flux and lines of force. There is a true matrix, and it is the matrix which guides, heals, and blesses us. However, we must not ignore that something is not quite right. Something has happened, for want of a better word of describing it. We are influenced by also a false paradigm, a false matrix. Hollywood has often given us some clues about this. Hollywood has many, many negative aspects. I'm not here to defend it, but they also give us amazing insights into really what's real. We have the movie from the 1990s called The Matrix, in which the character Neo, which means new, he is the new man, if you like. So he comes into his new identity by realizing there is something going on that should not be. He overcomes it in a true Hollywood fashion. He is the hero and becomes the new man, the Superman. We also had the movie called The Truman Show. Again, look at the name, Truman Show. The character in it was the only one that did not know that everything else was false about him. And his journey as a hero was to become aware of the falsity, what was fake around him. And around the character in the show, everything was fake. But yet, he succeeded. He became a true man. In 1979, the Nag Hammadi scrolls were translated. It's the only book that I have ordered before it was published. I really waited with great anticipation to find out what was discovered here. All of the ancient texts have been altered, even the ones at Nag Hammadi. We learned in our visit to the I stated that wrong, even the ones from Qumran. We visited there recently. So there we resonated and I believe downloaded a great harmonic infinity code that will lead to healing. Back in 1979, I read these translations. They, I have to say, flummoxed me. They were not what I expected. They were not a bridge between what I believed was the Western mysticism and the East. It was totally different. These were people who called themselves Gnostics. Sounds arrogant. They said, we're the ones who know. And in studying their texts, they reveal a totally different understanding of the causality which we are living in. They speak of archons. They speak of a grid. We would call it a matrix. Archons being a Greek word, meaning lords. And these are not the good type. There's a reference to a demiurge, a fake creator. The true matrix was established in their terminology by Pistis Sophia. The creator, in their view, was a feminine aspect of the creator. And we, of course, know that in 3D. Creativity comes through the feminine. Something happened. There was conflict, however you want to describe it, between the legions of light with Michael and the legions of rebels, as Casey would call them, through Lucifer, the light bearer. There became an intrusion of malignant entities, such as Anunnaki, Orion and Draco reptilians. We still have our Greys. And also maybe even refugees from Mars, as we study the work of Richard Hoagland yesterday. He delineates very, very clearly that there were previous civilizations, not only on the moon, but on Mars, and probably on the rings of Saturn also. So our free will universe and our personal sovereignty were distorted. Then, as per Hancock, but also now of others, they have proven that a great catastrophe occurred 13,000 years ago. The group trauma was immense, leading to great distortion and vulnerability. These false leaders continue to traumatize us. As we're traumatized, fear enters into our magnetic field. And so our vibrations step down even further. There was a massive forgetting and a locking into this third dimension, governed by predators. And we have experienced many messengers, such as Yeshua and Lord Buddha. They tell us quite clearly that we are prisoners, or maybe we were prisoners, and that our goal is to become aware of ourselves, to be such. There's a phrase that the worst prison of all is the one that you don't realize you're in at all. And this false grid is characterized by hierarchy and patriarchy. And I have nothing against the male gender whatsoever. What has been forced upon us is a fake or false masculinity, which seeks to destroy the feminine aspect. Its work is deception, inversion, and backwardation. Our Pentagon in this country is built in a negative way. It is pointed down rather than up. So that in itself reveals a negative sacred geometry. It's ruled by minions who display psychopathy and sociopathy. They're the only medical terms you'll hear me say today. These are personality disorders. Fortunately, only 2 to 4% of the population are afflicted with this. Unfortunately, they afflict us with their psychopathy. The feminine was terrorized and suppressed. Sacred sites were destroyed. I mentioned about the Pentagon. We were kept in a state of imbalance, fear, and anxiety, and this reinforces again and again our amnesia, and we lose our contact with the infinite. Monarchies were instituted. Again, the word archy is there. Ruling by iron in the Kali Yuga. We have religion, which the Latin root is religia, which means to rebind. So religion rebinds us again and again and again until we almost can't move. The Romans worked through fascia. The rulers carried a cord of whips with them. And that's what the word fascist means. They ascribed the power to themselves to beat and humiliate us. So it's a mind control hierarchy to disempower even more. Since the harmonic convergence in 1987, however, only the minions and their artificial intelligence grid, as well as the grays, remain. Our task is to be aware of negative thoughts, particularly fear. You've heard that, since they continue to disempower us. However, we now are grasping and keeping our power. All previous soul contracts made without fully informed consent are null and void. And I finish with one of the great heroes of the last century, Martin Luther King. If you watch his speech from the Mall in Washington again, listen to it as if you were talking to you, not just to the black people in our nation, which have been so humiliated. He says, "Praise God Almighty. We are free at last, free at last, free at last."